Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who is looking for Salt Lake City recommendations, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. I'm Sean Callanan. Welcome to episode 334 of Sports Geek. This week, I chat with Jay Karen from the National Golf Course Owners Association, NGCOA. And yes, I am looking for Salt Lake City recommendations. C Conference is coming up soon, July 14, 15. If you haven't got your registration in yet, please do so. And if you're listening to this, you can use the code SportsGeekMates. As always, you can contact me via email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com, or on socials via @Sean Callanan or @SportsGeek. I really do appreciate and love hearing from podcast listeners. Let's get into my chat with Jay in an exciting time in golf. Very happy to welcome Jay Karen. He is the CEO of the National Golf Course Owners Association. Jay, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me all the way from Charleston, South Carolina to Melbourne, Australia. I love it.
Terrific. First question is one I ask all my guests. How did you get your start in the world of sports business?
Oh, wow. Happenstance a little bit. 26 years ago. I started working for NGCOA here in Charleston as just a young part-timer trying to get my master's degree in history. And I was going to be a history teacher, and I was going to coach golf and cross-country running. And I kind of fell into this association that just was, I knew some people that worked there, and that was it. And the rest of history, I ended up loving the association work that just happened to be in golf. And I've been in and out of this industry now for 26 years. So just stumbled upon it, Sean.
And it's very similar to a recent golf guest, Gavin Kirkman at the PGA Australia. He was the same, sort of fell into golf at the start, fell in love with the sport, but also fell in love with the administration in different roles. Do you find that you had different roles? You're now in the CEO role, but obviously there's been steps along the way in different areas. Do you think that was important in learning different parts of the business of an association because it's a unique type of business?
Yeah, it actually is a pretty complex business. And people see me as a golf executive, and really I'm an association executive first that just happens to be in golf. And so I've studied the profession of association management and leadership. And I just, and it's multifaceted from financial operations to membership recruitment, sponsorship, event business, lobbying, education, magazine publication. It's a pretty complex business. And so I really studied how to run associations, became a student of that early in my career. And I just am kind of lucky and fortunate that it happens to be in an industry like golf. In fact, Sean, a lot of my peers are association executives running all kinds of associations in many different kinds of industries. And they look at me and they can't believe I get to do what I do because, they're representing healthcare, industries or professions or educational or whatever it might be. And that I'm in golf. A little bit of the envy of my peers.
So tell us a little bit about, what does it mean, National Golf Owners Association? What's your key role? What part do you play in the golf industry?
Yeah, sure. So we represent the men and the women and the companies that put their money at risk in the golf business. As some people say, our members sign the front of checks, not the back of checks. And what that means is, they own the land upon which the game is played and the business is run. And so they have a lot at risk running golf courses around the United States. And in the golf business, as you probably know, there's a kind of an alphabet soup of associations. An association for the superintendents, for the club managers, for the golfers, for the game of golf, the United States Golf Association, LPGA, PGA of America, architects, builders, you name it. And our swim lane, if you will, are the owners and operators. So our focus is we're a trade association. We represent the business of the golf course, whereas a lot of the other associations represent the profession or the individuals that are working in the industry.
And so you said before, a lot of your peers are other associations. What are some of the different parts of the business that become part of an association? Because you're right, you're saying you're not like, if I'm talking to stadiums and venues, you're not that. You're a representative of them, and you're not a team or a league. But everyone's business is changing to be, servicing members, media and comms. What does that look like? So what does an association look like now than, maybe looking back when you started? How has that changed?
I can probably say the number one thing that has changed, a couple of things have changed over time, but in primarily advocacy work. We call it advocacy. Some people call it lobbying or what have you, because the political climate and the ecosystem in America has changed pretty dramatically over the last 20, 30 years. And so in issues that impact our industry, we have to get involved in, and more they're happening at the state level, not just the federal government level, because the federal government in America is so dysfunctional. Not so much happens because we've polarized. The parties don't come together to work very closely. And so a lot of the legislation that happens in America gets pushed down to the state level. And that's where a lot of the action is. And so that's changed over time is associations have to be deeply involved in government affairs work. That's just it's a very American institution here as lobbying organizations and what have you. And I say education has changed over time. We're educators in the association world. We are publishing journals and white papers and research and trade magazines, and we're now doing podcasting and online shows and events in person. You name it, like the many kinds of media and content. And that's changed dramatically over time too, because 25, 30 years ago, really when the internet was at its infancy, if you will, associations were the place to get information for your profession or your industry, the place. There was no such thing as Google to search, right? So the internet and the democratization of information has changed the way people consume information, and associations have had to evolve to be relevant to their membership or their constituency, because we don't own the knowledge base anymore. And so what becomes pretty important is the networking within the association. So we bring people together, because as much as you can find on Google, Sean, and the search engines for information, nothing still replaces talking to people who have done the job and are doing it as well, doing it at the same time you are. And so coming together at conferences or getting together in an online groups that we host at NGCOA, where owners can talk to each other. Still, nothing replaces that human-to-human experience and sharing, and we facilitate that. That's become a more important role than ever because of that democratization of information.
And obviously, the last, you're talking about the lobbying part and the government interactions that you have to do, but obviously, the last 5 years have seen a lot of change and dealing with a lot of challenges from a golf course point of view with the pandemic. How has your association, your members, bounced back and come back from some of the challenges that presented? Yeah,
we didn't have to bounce back. We've only bounced, honestly, because in America, I call the American economy was in a recession from around 2008 to 2010, 2012, and then we got out of the recession. But the golf industry stayed in a recession from about 2006, 2007, all the way up until the spring of 2020, when COVID-19 hit the world. And we had been on a precipitous decline of participation. The number of courses in America was contracting and shrinking. And so when the pandemic hit, our government affairs muscles were tested, because we had to make the case as governors and mayors and government officials were shutting everything down indiscriminately. We had to make the case for, hang on a second, golf is different. A golf course is 200 acres of space, and we allow people on 4 at a time. And at the time of social distancing, it made so much sense. So honestly, with the exception of a few pockets around America, golf stayed open, and we saw this surge in participation from returning golfers, new golfers, you name it. And because golf was one of the few things you could do. And we've basically kind of still riding the wave of that, to tell you the truth, Sean. We're still about 20% overall improvement in participation and key performance indicators in the American golf economy since 2019. And we're seeing some softening this year of some rounds being played. A lot of it has to do with weather patterns, but we've seen a bounce, and we haven't come down yet. We will, everything is cyclical, but right now we're still kind of riding the wave.
And in your role in the association, has it been that sharing of notes, collaborating with courses to take on board those new golfers? Because again, it was similar, the conversation in Australia that, golf is a game that was built before social distancing, but had social distancing, embedded in it. So it did have a lot of people flocking to a golf course. Has it been really something that's really buzzing around your association to, how to retain, how to keep engaging, how to talk to some of these, they might be completely new golfers and participants that have never been on a golf course, 5 years ago?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'd say from my seat, and I get to kind of watch a lot of conversations going on in our industry, I'd say the golfer retention is probably not the number one conversation being had. I'll tell you this, it was the number one conversation between 2005 and 2020 because we were losing customers. So when you're in a soft economy and you're shrinking, you're talking number one about how do we keep our customers? How do we get them coming back? But when the demand is high, the conversations change. Now, yes, I think because it was part of our DNA the last 15, 20 years of what do we got to do to keep our customers, that's kind of a natural now. That's a natural concern, but it's not the top concern. The top concern these days, I'd say, has to do with the workforce in the golf industry and the difficulty of recruiting and retaining employees at a high, when demand is as high as it's ever been. So the pressure on the staff of a golf course is as high as it's ever been because more people are coming, and we're adding elements to the golf course that keep the golf course open at night now. We're putting top tracer range out there and putting lights on the range and having simulators that are now open till 10 o'clock at night at some golf courses. That expands the need for staff. When the sun went down, the golf course, the business closed down. So I'd say the number one conversation is less about keeping golfers as it is keeping our workers to be able to keep the business sustainable. That's the number one conversation. And I'd say another conversation we're having is how to deal with the high demand. Prices have gone up, green fees have gone up, membership dues have gone up, and staff are not always comfortable with charging higher prices. The golf course owners, we're making up for lost time, because a round of golf, basically the price of a round of golf did not change for 15 years when everything else in the American economy got more expensive. So relatively speaking, golf ended, over time was cheaper than ever because everything else was rising, right? So now we're finally making up for lost time in charging rates that we need to charge so that we can have the revenue to do the things necessary at the golf course. And it's kind of a new conversation. We have to train staff differently on, why am I paying $175 when 3 years ago it might have been $85 or whatever it might be. And that is a very different set of problems to deal with. They're good problems to have, Sean, honestly, but it's a different set of problems that owners have to discuss with each other how to get through, these interesting times.
And do you then look like outside the world of golf? Because like a lot of those problems that you're talking about have been tackled in other parts of sports, dynamic pricing around attending games and all of those kind of things has been something that consumers have been conditioned to, whether they're going to an NFL game or an NBA game. And it's just like, well, hang on, we're going to start moving with these times. Is that something where you're sort of looking outside and being that educator for your industry?
100%. Great thread there in connecting the dots here, because I like to say the only industry that is slower than golf is the church as far as change, when it comes to change. And so, yes, dynamic pricing it's becoming more and more popular. You're seeing it happen, and we have to look outside of golf to see the success stories. But there's a hesitancy in our industry to go all in on that sometimes, because when we're talking airlines, hotel companies, stadiums, ticketing, when you're the customer, or you don't have the ability to face the merchant, to face the business owner if you've got a grievance about this. If you just paid, $900 for your Taylor Swift, concert tickets, that the face value of which was $125, and you got beef about this, you're not going to Taylor Swift. You're not going to her to complain. You're going to this faceless corporation. And so there's this distance between the corporations and the sports teams and the fan. when you're running a golf course and you're behind the counter and you just sold a tee time through dynamic pricing where the 1108 tee time might have been $84 and then the 1116 is $23 for some reason, or whatever the dynamic pricing allows for, and you're dealing with two customers that are paying two very different rates for almost the same time, you're facing the customer directly. So there's a hesitancy to do this because of a fear of a backlash. But I'll tell you this, those that have done it, those that turn on the algorithms, turn on the systems, on the dynamic pricing, have not looked back. They're doing incredibly well. So yeah, but we do look outside for inspiration and for lessons learned 100%.
I mean, and some of the lessons in the sports space were jumping in too early and not having the right data and knowledge to know that that's what they're doing. It's not just a matter of flicking the switch and, hey, more money, because you need to be able to have those data points to say what is the price that our customers will bear. And so then that delays that friction. Is, you're saying golf is sort of trying to increase and move with the change. Is that data piece becoming more and more prevalent with the more the more tech savvy and the more data specific, the more data savvy golf courses? They're the ones that are seeing those returns because they're putting that investment into knowing their golfers and knowing what they'll pay and knowing when their peak times are. Yeah,
great question. And we are even slow to the game on data in our industry and getting good data. The industry is way behind the hotel industry and others on automatically measuring some of the key performance indicators. But there is still some out there. There isn't more information today to make some educated decisions, but it is mostly, unfortunately, a look back. So a golf course can say, all right, the third week of May last year, what was the demand? How did it look?
Yep.
And that's not always the best indicator. It's not a real live indicator of demand, what could be. And so, but it's better than what we used to have. But I'll tell you, some taking from the ticketing and sports industry, there are some companies now that are investing in golf. I've been talking, and I get a call every week from a tech company trying to come into the golf space. They think I've got the next thing that can make money, drive rounds, or whatever it might be. And, some of the more interesting ones I'm seeing right now, Sean, one of them is kind of I call it the StubHub effect, right? The aftermarket, the secondary market, because golf, it's hard to get a tee time, especially at the high end resorts. And so if you bought the 8 a.m. tee time at the Kiowa Island Golf Resort at the Ocean Course, that foursome might cost $2,400. And if you had to cancel, you're kind of out of luck, right? But if there was a system that allowed you to resell that tee time, maybe even make a little money off of it, there are technology companies that are now experimenting in the space right now where the owner of the golf course might actually get, a percentage of that, let's just say, of the secondary market. So there's an incentive there for the owner maybe to participate. And kind of getting back to the demand data, to me, one of the bright spots of something like that, I'm a little worried about the cascading effect of this, like unintended consequences. When you see what's happening in the ticketing industry and in concerts and sports, it creates a lot of hatred and anger actually with some of this stuff. I don't want that to happen. But what it could do is it could give a golf course owner visibility into what people are actually willing to pay to play there. And because that's the invisible metric is how, I don't want to push it too far in price before I lose customers or really upset people. So how far can I push it? And most small business owners don't want to push too far. But if you found out through the secondary market that $180 tee time or golf round actually ended up selling for $420, you're going to start thinking, oh my gosh, that's the real demand, right? And so so that's happening in the golf space now. And there's some actual technology now that's really interesting. It's kind of waitlist technology where you say, hey, listen, I want to play Torrey Pines at 10 o'clock on Saturday. Put me on the list. If that tee time gets open, I want to be the first on the list and I'm willing to pay X for that. So we're finding a really interesting new set of technology that is based mostly off high demand kinds of things. I worry about that technology if demand ever softens again, that are those technologies going to do really well or not? I don't know. But yeah, really interesting where these concepts that are happening in these other sporting areas are coming into golf to try to capitalize on that secondary market in the high demand dynamics that we have right now.
Definitely. I mean, that is, it is one of the easiest things for the VCs and the tech the tech implementation, say, hey, how do we adapt? But the other thing is, it's also the changing way of just consumers. We click a button and a car turns up. We click a button and we get a ticket to a concert, and we still buy it. Like, we might complain about Taylor Swift, but it's like, that's the only way you're getting a ticket to a Taylor Swift concert, unless you're Aaron Rodgers and you just have to get to walk into MetLife. But like, that's the only way. And so, people are being trained in that behavior. So, 15 years ago, there was a lot of work put into training fans on, this is how we're now going to do it. Whereas, being a bit of a laggard in the space, you don't have to do as much of that training, because it's trained behavior through other products. So it's going to be exciting to see how it goes, and how you booked tee times previously to what it might look like in 5 or 10 years time is going to keep changing.
Well, to that point, Sean, we kind of point to the airline industry as an example to assuage the fears of golf course owners to get into dynamic pricing. When you're sitting in 13B, that you probably didn't pay the same price as 13A or 12B. Right, you just know that, even though it's practically the same experience, right? And so, to your point, consumers are used to that. They've gotten used to that, and they get used to things pretty quickly, especially with technology where it's the only choice. It's like you got no choice but to adapt to what the company says you must do, right? And so we kind of try to bring these examples to golf course owners, say, don't worry so much. Your customers are actually willing to do this. And another example is what we call surcharging, adding the 3 or 4% on top of, if you're paying by a credit card, and having the golfer pay the 3 or 4% if they're going to pay by credit card. That was scary business, not just even 3 years ago. Like, golf course owners said, I could never do that. My customers would, have a mutiny on my, with me if I did that. And all of a sudden, restaurants are doing it left and right. All these merchants are doing it left and right. Now it's becoming pretty darn mainstream, and golf course owners can recoup the 3% that they're paying in the merchant processing fees. And I think it's an okay thing to do. As a consumer, I'm like, I grumble when I do it. But when I represent the golf course owners and operators, I'm like, do it, folks. Do it, because why should you pay the 3 or 4%? That is funding all the rewards cards and all of the airline points and, the 2% back that consumers are getting through, charging cards. Why should you pay for all of that? This is a commodity. And so I'm pretty stoked about what's happening in the other industries that find its way to golf. And my job is to try to be a champion for what I think are the best practices and healthy and good practices.
And so another thing that is, part of the demand and also the changing nature of golf, when I was speaking to Gavin Kirkman, he talked about all golf is golf. And so 25 years ago, golf was a Saturday morning tee time with 3 pals and 18 holes. And now, golf itself is being disrupted by things like Top Golf. We're seeing high-end bars that are mini golf, and all these new people that are coming into the sport. You've been in, on the at the National Golf Course Association, for a long time. Early on, was that a little bit of let's get the fists up? This is our competitors, and is that softened as all golf has grown?
One of the metaphors that some industry leaders use in our space is like basketball. That, hey, when you're shooting hoops with just one of your buddies in the driveway, isn't that basketball? How do you count basketball participation? Does it have to be on a full court with a team and a uniform on, even if it's, if you're a kid? And so, that's a pretty good metaphor for what's happening in golf, right? What is golf? And so when Top Golf came on the scene, it was around the same time for me, like when it really came on the scene. It was around the same time that I actually came to Melbourne. It was 2016 for me, when I kind of saw the new age simulator that was there. Yep. I don't remember which company was there, but I was blown.
Maybe X Golf. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was right. I was blown away in the moment. I was like, my synapses started firing. I started connecting. I started thinking, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking about the green grass golf course owner in this respect, thinking, wow, if the golf course owner embraces this and creates their own golf entertainment kind of business, oh my gosh, that is the opening to new revenue, more so than selling more tee times. I thought this is good. Now, the Top Golf phenomenon, when it first came out, I think there certainly was you'd have two camps of thought. You'd have one that think, oh no, this is going to steal bread off our table. And then you have others that say anything that puts a golf club in someone's hand is going to be good for golf. And they're just going to find their way over to the golf course at some point. They're going to get tired of this Top Golf thing and want to try the real thing. Now, but the question being asked at the time was, how many true golfers will Top Golf help create? When someone goes to Top Golf for the first time, they swing, they hit. How many of those people are going to go over to the green grass side at some point? And I said, you're asking the wrong question, because Top Golf wants people to come back to Top Golf, right? So they're not going to be good citizens of the industry and say, hey, everybody, we want this to be the gateway to the green grass. No, not at the time, certainly. Now it's different because they own Top Tracer range technology. So they're now in the green grass footprint, which is incredibly smart, so clever that they've got that base covered too. So I was telling golf course owners in 2016, 2017, don't worry about if Top Golf is going to bring you anybody. You need to figure out how to emulate what they're doing. And at the time, the only answer was a simulator thing. And it was the closest thing that you could embrace that was technology and all of that. And then Top Tracer Range really came on the scene too. So now you've got two possibilities of emulating what they do instead of worrying about what they're doing and if they're going to bring you golfers. And so the questions have changed over time. And to me, it's all complementary. I think, okay, yeah, we might lose some people, maybe. I don't know how many people would go from green grass and then only do Top Golf. I just don't see that happening. It's just kind of a different, you're scratching a different itch when you're on the golf course and, hitting a ball out in nature, then drinking beer, eating pretzels, really good food, and hitting at these, alien targets, it's just not the same. And that's okay. So I find them complementary.
And you find that, I guess, part of that disruption is, like you said, it has changed and transformed golf courses. 5 or 10 years ago, they weren't open at night. They weren't, this is why you've got part of that staffing problem you talked about earlier, because they're like, oh, maybe golfers do like entertainment. Maybe they do like spending a lot of time in the 19th hole, so to speak, and want that entertainment option. So you're seeing a lot of golf courses invest in that entertainment side to diversify their offering.
100%. I've been telling golf course owners that adding a we call it golf entertainment business to your business, bolting that on, is the fastest way to 6 figures in new revenue than anything else happening. And in fact, I've told golf course owners what you should do, because, like it's happening all over the world, these, like you said, restaurant and bars that have 10 simulators and they're in a retail location somewhere in town. I told golf course owners 5 years ago, I said, look, you should go into these commercial spaces and have a satellite campus of your golf course and cross-pollinate the two businesses. Don't let some other restaurateur or entrepreneur take it. You've got probably a database of 10,000 golfers that you can market this other business to if you can't build it at your golf course. Because commercial real estate in America is not doing so well. So you can probably get an old store that's probably 10,000 square feet for a lot cheaper than you used to, and give it a shot. So you're not making a capital investment, and have 2 locations for your business. So yeah, Sean, I'm still very bullish about it. In fact, I'm already concerned that there's going to be oversaturation in some markets of these. That's how quickly it's catching fire. Is that there will be an oversaturation of that. But what I love most about all of it is it's the answer to what are we going to do on Friday night? Because, in the 70s, people went to dance clubs. In the 80s, people went to bowling alleys, right? And, and then for a while there, the families went to like these trampoline parks, these jump things and what have you. But now it's like, this is what you do. You're picking up a golf club. Yeah, it's the excuse to socialize. You got to have something around which to socialize. And it happens to be, and we're fortunate as hell, it's picking up a golf club and hitting a ball into a screen, into whatever. And so yeah, it's we better not squander this as an industry. We better nurture it and keep it going for as long as possible, because someday it's going to be bowling again, or something's going to take the place of what to do on Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly. Or one of those axe wielding bars, which I'm surprised that there aren't more accidents. I'm never drinking and holding an axe at the same time. It never seems like it's going to end well.
I got to imagine you got to get your insurance. You got to get your insurance overseas for those businesses. Yeah, you know.
Exactly. Moving back to the traditional golf course, the one thing that fascinates me is the golf course owners looking for and attracting or bidding for tournaments at multiple levels, whether they be a local tournament that's really important for participation and engaging their community, or making a bid for a PGA or a live tour and having that big event. That makes owning a golf course a really unique business, because you're in an event business, and you're driving ticket sales and your hospitality and all the things that come with an event. Even if you are just the host, it might be the tour and that coming in, and then you've got the balance of then the other 50 weeks of the year. It goes back to being a golf course. That must be both an exciting challenge for many of your members.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the spectrum of events, like you mentioned, all the way to the top end. You're hosting a PGA Tour event, to you're just holding your local soup kitchen, charitable event. But we say in the golf business that yes, you're in the hospitality business, you're in the food and beverage, you're in the restaurant business, you're in the sport business, you're in the event business, you're farmers. Golf course owners and operators are farmers, and their crop happens to be turf grass, right? And so you're right. And on the event side, the high demand market has changed things, actually, to believe it or not. Now, when we're talking about PGA Tour events and USGA Championship, that's a different league, where a lot of that happens at private clubs, because a lot of times you're having to prepare the course for months and months and months. And I heard Oak Hill, where they just had the PGA Championship right here, I heard that not a shot was played on the golf course for something like 6 or 7 months at least. And so the members can do that's why a lot of these are held at private clubs too, because the membership has the financial wherewithal to kind of forego maybe that year, and deal with that. You don't see a lot of privately owned public golf courses running these events, because you're taking a risk by doing it too. While the other side is you get notoriety, and you can say we hosted X event, and that certainly helps in your marketing. There are pros and cons to it, but the event business has changed a bit since COVID. Honestly, when you're talking about the rank and file, the smaller events that are put on the corporate events, the charity events, and so forth, because in this high demand market, the events are becoming they yield less for the golf course than just opening up the tee sheet and selling those tee times. They're hard to deal with. There's a lot of wear and tear on the staff to pull those off very well. But trust me when I say events are not going anywhere. Because it's a golf events are the number one way that we raise $4 billion in America for charity is through golf events that happen at the golf course. So they're not going anywhere, because they're great vehicles for fundraisers. But if you're a golf course owner, it's a harder decision to accept an event than it used to be, because of the opportunity cost of what, if I filled my tee sheet today, I could yield maybe $20,000 more than if I sold this event. So we're finding that golf courses are charging more to have events. You might be required to buy out the entire course for the day instead of just trying to do a shotgun in the afternoon. So the dynamics are changing, and golf course owners are charging more to have, for events to have that access. And so it's definitely a little bit different than it used to be.
And so it just effectively gives a little bit more leverage to the owners, because it does become a financial equation to say, hey, we want to run a tournament. It's like, well, this is what I'll get if you guys don't turn up. It becomes, hey, you want to rent my course? Come on in.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, you're still competing against other golf courses for some great events. And so the level of hospitality, I've noticed food and beverage at these events have gotten better and better over the years. It used to be just kind of a turkey and cheese sandwich wrapped in plastic and an apple was your, box lunch. And now you'll have a little cup of pasta salad, and you might have higher end food station on golf courses at events. So I think a lot of golf courses have upped their game when it comes to the kinds of things you might experience at a charitable or corporate golf event, which I think is great. You got to get creative and stay fresh, but it's still a core part of the business. But the dynamics have changed a bit in the high demand market. If we find ourselves in a low demand market, we might see us saying, bring on the events.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there also a tweak? I mean, how we are seeing, at least at that top level, how the events are changing, the Waste Management Open and, all the craziness and around, is it a golf tournament? Is it a rock concert? and sort of again changing that face? Is there an appeal from a golf course owner if you go, well, we are a golf course, but we want to push our entertainment value and what we offer? If you're sort of leaning into that a little bit, it sort of swings the needle back to developing a tournament like that and putting that offer to your local market.
I'm going to have to surmise here on what tournament operators and are thinking on this. They're thinking about fans, not golfers. For the most part, they're thinking about ticket sales, food and beverage sales, apparel sales, and they probably know that there's a strong percentage of the people that come through the gates aren't golfers. They just want to be around the atmosphere. They want to enjoy the hospitality. They want to get glimpses of people they've heard of. You've got certainly avid folks like me who are going to, eat up every bit of it and appreciate the course and all of that. But I think at some level, it's about revenue. It's not about profile of who's there. And you're putting on a show. I call it Golf Hollywood. I think we've talked about this. I call it Golf Hollywood. And it's not a pejorative term. It's just what it is. It's like it's entertainment. And what do you think that the PGA Tour broke away from the PGA of America, 50-something years ago, because it was a kind of this traveling, entertainment, excellent exhibition and tournaments and all that. But for the fans, it's entertainment, right? And so for them, it's the competition. For the fans, it's entertainment. And so you're as a golf course owner, you're obviously having to please both parties. You have to have a field of play that is exceptional for the golfer, and whatever that might mean for that particular tournament, whether it's a USGA championship or a major or whatever it might be. So you're having to appease to the highest echelon of the golfer, but at the same time, you have to appease the discerning fan. And, what kind of beer are you serving? It's no longer just good to have Bud Light or whatever. Are you serving the local IPA from the local region? Are you serving if you're in Milwaukee or if you're Whistling Straits, are you serving bratwurst from Wisconsin there instead of just hot dogs from New York or whatever? So a lot has gone into upping the game because the majors are highly competitive with each other. From a customer experience standpoint, I don't know when the last time you've been to a major in America, but holy mackerel, it's like they set up these small cities, and the fan experience is much more than just the golf, to watch the golf, and probably no different than what's happening in stadiums and basketball arenas and so forth. There's a lot of hoopla going on around in between the timeouts and everything that has nothing to do with basketball to keep everybody entertained during that time period. Same thing happens at these golf tournaments.
One part I did want to touch on, definitely happens in my part of the world. Part of the attraction of golf, in particular some golf courses, is effectively tourism marketing. Destination. I'm sure there's people across America that sort of have a map, they have pins ready to go, and these are courses I want to do. But I would assume that 90% of their business is a local. Is a local constituency, the regulars, the people who are, 25 to 50 miles away from the golf course. How do they, some of your members sort of balance that piece to go, we want you to have the guys' weekend or the girls' weekend and come down and have a couple of rounds at our course and make it a destination and sort of do that tourism marketing, which is outside of market and requires some, national relevance or different methods. Right. How much is that, I guess, a strategy for golf course owners?
I guess it depends on the market. If you're in a destination market, automatically, like you name it, Myrtle Beach, Atlanta, Las Vegas, if you happen to be there, you're just going to be part of that tourism ecosystem, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
So you're playing a different game too, actually, where you're more likely to be on what we call online tee time distributors, the aggregators, Golf Now, and other the sites like that. You're more likely to participate on those sites because you're trying to attract the transient golfer. The transient golfer is more likely to use an aggregator to figure out where to play. So you're playing in a different game. You're working with your convention and visitors bureau or your tourism agencies to make sure that golf is getting equal airtime as the parks and the stadiums. And, why do I come to Phoenix or why do I come to Seattle? Yep. Golf is fighting for space among all the other attractions. And, if you're well organized, if your industry is well organized, you can make some amazing headway. Like Myrtle Beach, the golf course owners and operators of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, are incredibly well organized. They work very closely with the Tourism Bureau in Myrtle Beach to make sure that golf is the crown jewel of why people go to Myrtle Beach. But I still say, even in a lot of those markets, you still have a strong percentage of your actual play are from locals, and so you do have to appease both. And honestly, it's marketing. It's two different marketing games. Marketing to the national transient golfer is a different game. You got to be better on your search engine than probably the course in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. You don't probably have to worry too much about search engine marketing if you're in Lincoln, Nebraska. But then in that case, you're doing you're doing your marketing to your local golfers, and that's a different game. That's more database driven, getting your customers' emails, letting them know about the specials going on this week or what have you. So yeah, you're right. It's two very different skill set to market to the tourist golfing, the golf tour operators. You got to know who's booking golf events for groups. You got to be on their radar screen if you're in those tourism destinations. So yeah, two very different games, Sean.
Jay, you've been in the golf industry for a long time. What excites you about golf going forward?
Well, I just heard a stat last week or the week before, a couple weeks ago, actually. We were at National Golf Day in Washington, D.C., and one of the stats that we were sharing with people is that 48% of golfers in America are under the age of 35. And so golf seems to be getting younger. And not only that, but those that are young coming into the game are more diverse from a demographic standpoint than ever before. And so if you're looking at golf like a stock, the future of the stock looks really bright when it comes to golf participation. So that's the most exciting thing, is to see the changes in diversity and youth happening in the game. That just gives us some confidence that that's going to happen. Also, what excites me is despite the negative situation around COVID, when we see the bump in participation, the last time we saw that kind of bump in participation was the Tiger Woods effect 6 years ago. And at that time, the bump in participation didn't stay around. They didn't stick around because the magnetism of one rock star athlete had very little to do with going to the golf course and teeing off on the first tee. It's like, I when I was a kid, I loved Major League Baseball, and I had some superstar heroes of mine, but it had nothing to do with my ability to play baseball as a second grader, right? And if I'm terrible at it, I'm not going to play the game. And so fast forward to COVID, and we saw millions of people come to the game, and it's because of the reasons they came to the game are the exact reasons people stay in the game for their entire lives. I want to go do something fun. I want to be outside. I want to be social. Yeah, I kind of want to challenge myself with this game and this sport on top of all that. Those are the very reasons we play the game for 50, 60 years of our lives. So to me, I'm excited about this because the retention is going to be organic and natural over time because of what we saw. So that excites me. Also, technology that I'm seeing happening in the golf course. We talked about whether it's a simulators, a top tracer range. We've got some automation that's happening, around the agronomic space, robotic mowers, and you're going to see self-service kiosks for checking in at the pro shop instead of waiting in line at the counter or whatever it might be. You're going to see a lot more of that. And I'm really excited about this because honestly, and I've been playing golf for probably, 35 years of my 49 years or so. And there really have been only two changes in my lifetime in the golfer experience. One was when we went to soft spikes, from hard spikes to soft spikes in the shoes. That was a big change, if you look back. And then GPS technology, having distance finding assistance through technology. Besides that, can you name any other really significant changes in the golfer experience over the last 40 years? No. But you're going to see a lot more coming down the pike here in the next 5, 10, 15 years. You're going to see drones delivering food and beverage on the golf course to wherever you might be. You're going to see, all of these things happening. So to me, that's pretty exciting. We're going to finally kind of stay with the times as good. We're going to be forced to. in essence. But it excites me. I like it that golf course owners and operators are starting to experience with modern technology. It's fun to watch.
Terrific. Well, Jay, I want to get to the Sports Geek Closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Yeah, for me, it was the Atlanta Braves and the old Fulton County Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. And this was back in probably around 1982, 83, when the Braves were in the basement in their division. They were terrible. And it was a government-owned stadium. Tickets were cheap as heck. And my mom and dad, who had 4 boys, we got to bring our own tuna sandwiches to the ballpark to save a little money. And so I remember falling in love with baseball and the Atlanta Braves back in the early 80s. Yeah.
Terrific. What's your you would have been to a lot of sports event in your time, and I'm guessing a lot of golf tournaments. Do you have a favorite food memory or a go-to food when you go to a sports event?
You know, whether it's a baseball game or a football game, that's probably the only time during the year I really eat dry roasted peanuts, salted roasted peanuts. You know, just they taste better in the ballpark. With a cold beer, sure, hot dogs, sure, those taste great in all kinds of different settings. But something about a bag of dry roasted salted peanuts that you can throw your shells on the ground and get away with it at a stadium, although the stadium people probably hate that. So yeah, to me that's kind of my classic go-to.
Terrific. What's the first app you open in the morning?
The first app I open is my iMessage app, my texting app, because what I do is I play Wordle. I don't know if that's a big thing in Australia, but Wordle is a daily word game, and I play it every day. I'm always in a competition with my friend Darius Rucker, who's a country music singer here, and he's a big, well-known in golf. And so we're texting each other our Wordle score every morning, and he usually has his done by 6:30 a.m. So the first thing I do is I look at my text and see what the hell Darius got in Wordle. And of course, not believe him that he got it in 2 or 3 lines almost every day.
Terrific. Is there someone that the Sports Geek podcast listeners should follow? There might be someone that you follow on social, or an author or a colleague that is doing great things.
I think I love following Jeff Shackelford, the golf TV personality and writer. He was on the Golf Channel for years. I love reading his newsletter, The Quadrilateral, it's called. Yeah, he just has I think a really intelligent take on a lot of what's happening in what I call the golf Hollywood scene, right? But he dives into architecture a lot and has great interviews. So I like following Jeff Shackelford and his stuff. On the fun side on social media, it's the Manilow Teaches Golf, and this personality, Hispanic personality that he has the funniest golf tip videos. And he's a character, but he simplifies the complexities of the elements of a golf swing in such a fun, funny way. I can't help but watch everything that comes through from his stuff on social media. So those are my 2 favorites from golf.
Terrific. Then last one, what social media platform is your MVP? And so you can answer that personally, like what's the one that you use as your go-to, but then also maybe also for the National Golf Association, Owners Association.
I'd say in both cases, honestly, Sean, it's LinkedIn. To me, that's where we get most of our juice, and me too, because I'm talking business issues, industry issues that are consequential, and LinkedIn is where people seem to engage more in intelligent conversation and discourse about those issues, and you have less riffraff and less polarization and what have you. In fact, people will say if someone's going too political or going too personal, things like keep it off LinkedIn, go to Facebook, go to Twitter with that stuff. So LinkedIn kind of self-polices a little bit to try to keep the discourse respectable and relevant to the business issues at hand. So LinkedIn to me is where it's at for what I do. On a personal level, I like scrolling through Instagram and seeing what's out there, all the pretty stuff going on in the world through Instagram. But LinkedIn is where it's at from a business standpoint for sure. And
is that the platform I always ask people who are listening to the podcast and appreciate your insights like I have to reach out and say thanks? Is LinkedIn the best platform to reach out and say that they're listening to the podcast to you?
Yes, LinkedIn's the best place for that, certainly. And we can post any clips up there and happy to promote the show and put them up there for people to find and listen to. But yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. Just search for Jay Karen on LinkedIn. You'll find me and just follow me. I'm indiscriminate and allow just about anybody to follow me. And so I'm not really choosy there. So come on and follow.
All right, Jay, thank you very much for the podcast. Really do appreciate it. And really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate the invitation. And maybe 3 or 4 years from now, we can talk about even newer technology that's going on in the golf space.
Definitely.
Why not book a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan? Go to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to Jay Karen from the National Golf Course Owners Association. It was really good to talk to him about golf. For full reference, I had my chat with Jay prior to the explosive news around the Live Tour PGA merger, takeover, peace, settlement, whichever you want to say. Quite fascinating from a sports business point of view, how the world of golf has been disrupted, as I discussed with Jay. Also, the Golf Business TechCon 23, will be in Las Vegas on October 10 and 11. So if you're in the golf business, if you're in all things golf and all the business around it, check that out. We'll put the links in the show notes, sportsgeekhq.com/334. You can always find all podcast notes at sportsgeekhq.com. And lastly, Sports Geek Amplify Series Season 2, presented by Seed Conference, is out now. They're in your podcast feed. You might have seen them dropped last week. 5 episodes from some terrific sports technology companies: Trajectory, Externet, SeatGeek, Sponsor CX, and Stats Perform. So please check them out. They'll be a great primer for your travel time getting to Salt Lake City for Seat. If you can't make it a Seat, there's still a great way to understand what are some of the conversations that will happen at Seat and why you should be attending in the future. You can check all of those out at sportsgeekamplify.com, or simply just flick your little way back in your podcast feed and you'll find those episodes there. I'd love your feedback. And if you're a sports technology business that want to reach a Sports Geek audience, please get in touch. We're going to start planning for Season 3 of Sports Geek Amplify. I really do like chatting with sports technology solutions that help drive revenue, save time, and make your life easier. That's it from me. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.